child to death in the name of God. They believe the Bible requires them to spank their kids with items like belts and rods in order to train them to be well-behaved, happy kids. These parents appear to have been following the teachings of a Christian parenting book called To Train Up a Child, the book that is growing in popularity around the world. Gary Tuckman tonight has the first of our two-part special report.
The small town of Paradise, California, where these children lived with their parents in a fundamentalist Christian home. For the 9 children, life in paradise was anything but. We cover up 8 of their faces because they are the survivors. Survivors of a violent form of discipline practiced by their parents, Kevin and Elizabeth Schatz. The one face not covered is their 7-year-old adopted daughter, Lydia. She was killed by her parents. Mike Ramsey is the district attorney of Butte County in Northern California.
We've heard of, the phrase death by 1,000 lashes. That's basically what this was.
This is where the family used to live. The children's sandbox is still here. So was their slide and their treehouse. But the surviving children are now in foster homes, and the parents are in prison.
Violated Section 273A, parentheses B of the...
They've pleaded guilty to killing Lydia and seriously injuring her 11-year-old sister, Zariah, who almost died. Authorities say Kevin and Elizabeth Schatz beat their children regularly because they believed God wanted them to. The district attorney says the Schatz believed
to spare the rod will spoil the child, and if you can train your horse and you can train your dog, you can train your children.
7-year-old Lydia suffered terribly, supposedly in the name of God. But authorities say this was torture and murder by parents who were supposed to love and cherish their child. Inside this house, they found important evidence. The so-called biblical rods that the Schatz had inside. What they were 15-inch long plumbing supply tubes used to beat the children. And also important, a book was found inside. A book that appeared to light the fuse to the deadly brutality. The book is called To Train Up a Child. Its author is this man on the tractor, Michael Pearl, and his wife Debbie. They consider themselves observant Christians who run an organization called No Greater Joy Ministries from their Tennessee farm.
Well, I'm a preacher, minister of the gospel.
Their book and others they've written stacked in a warehouse on their farm. All of them guided, they say, by the teachings in the Bible.
And it says that if you spare the rod, you hate your child. But if you love him, you chasten him timely.
A rod, according to the Pearl's Manual on Training Children, could be anything from a tree switch to a spatula. In the book, they describe a rod as a magic wand. God would not have commanded parents to use the rod if it were not good for the child. The Pearls say parents should stay in control and not act in extreme. But they also declare any spanking to effectively reinforce instruction must cause pain.
Let's say a 7-year-old slugs his sister.
A 7-year-old would get 10 or 15 licks, and it would be a formal thing. In other words, you maintain your patient air, you explain to him that what he's done is violent, and that's not acceptable in society, and it's not acceptable in our home. Then I would take him somewhere like into his bedroom, and I would tell him I'm going to give him 15 licks.
With what?
Probably a belt. A kid that big, a boy, I'd probably use a belt. It'd be handy. I might use a wooden spoon or a piece of like plumbing supply line, a 1/4 inch in diameter, flexible enough to roll up.
Flexible. See, what I'm saying here is why not just use your hand instead of all these materials?
Hey, look here. Let's see. Right here. Let me show you something. Does that hurt?
Doesn't feel good.
But look what it's doing. Look what it's doing to your whole body. See your hip? You don't use your hand on somebody. That's a karate
But
chop.
you're telling me that when you use this material that it can't cause a permanent pain?
The skin.
My children never had marks left on them.
But look at the body of Zariah, the daughter who was seriously injured by her parents. These are just some of her wounds. Other wounds and bruises on her body and on the body of her sister Lydia, who died, are far too graphic for us to show. Lydia was so severely beaten she died of a condition usually associated with earthquakes and bombings.
What do you think influenced the Schatzes to beat, terrorize, and torment their children like that?
The book by Mr. Pearl. There's no doubt about that.
Lydia was beaten for 7 continuous hours, interrupted by short prayer breaks on the day she died. The sound of the police siren was recorded by a Paradise police officer racing to the house. When he arrived, he tried to save Lydia with CPR, with both of the parents present.
She's swallowed a lot of vomit. Figure out what's going on. She was like really tired, and her vision was blurry. Come on, baby.
And listen later in the day to the seriously injured Zariah.
I believe it's just on the arms and the back.
On my bottom and on my back last night, and underneath my feet.
Underneath your feet? Sorry, I'd like to take you to the hospital. Okay?
I probably need to bring a pot because I might throw up again.
At the sentencing hearing, 11-year-old Zariah, who was still recovering from her serious injuries, had the courage to address her parents in open court about her deceased sister. She said, "Why did you adopt her? To kill her?" It's a heartbreaking story. Kevin pleaded guilty to murder and torture and will be in jail for at least 22 years, and Elizabeth for at least 12.
Do you think if the Schatzes did not read the Pearl's book, there'd be a good chance that Lydia is still alive?
I would think that there would be.
We reviewed the case, and we tried to find out what had happened to see if there was going to be any blame pointed at us. And so we looked into it.